need to have that drum set just follow me everywhere when we go into every meeting around the world. Very cool. Thank you, Oren, and special thanks to Ariel. We've worked with Ariel now about a year and had a great event at Demexco in Germany earlier in September, and thrilled to be here. This is my first trip ever to Tel Aviv, my third day ever here. It's amazing city. We have snow in New York right now. There's snow in London where our team is and where I just was last week as well. So a real special pleasure to be here. So let's video trends for 2018. Our panel is called this, and the conference is called this. So no pressure, guys. This is the panel, clearly, when they give the panel the same title of us all being here. So why don't we do a quick 1-minute speed pitch, as we say. Let everyone who isn't as familiar with all of the companies give a quick heads up. We normally start with the buyers and say whoever is closest to the dollars gets to go first. But in this case, Michal, let's have ladies go first, since you're our first lady up here, please.
Sure, so I'm MICHAL LICHTMAN, Head of Advertising at SundaySky. I have over 15 years experience in the industry, mainly at startups, web startups. I actually started coming from a technical background, started as an algorithm engineer at Mobileye. You referred to the autonomous driver before, so that relates. Since then, I did few customer-facing roles, and overall, I have over 15 years of product management roles. Currently, I'm working for the last 5 years, responsible for the advertising offering at SundaySky. SundaySky has this exciting technology of personal video advertising, and we can finally truly serve one-to-one messaging in video.
Great, thanks. Alex?
Alex McArthur, first time to Israel. It's beautiful here. I'd love to stay because it's so cold back home, so thank you for having me. So I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Purple. It's a brand that didn't exist 2 years ago, and now in the US, it's got about 20% awareness. I don't know what that percentage is here in Israel. It's probably pretty low.
19, maybe 19 and
19,
a half.
okay, yeah. Previous to that, I was in a leadership role at SEO.com, another company called Perch that owns 15 of the top 1,000 properties in the world, so Space.com, Laptop, a lot of one-word websites that I ran marketing for, so thankful to be here.
Great, thanks. Yotam?
Hi everybody, my name is Yotam. I'm the co-founder and COO of Wibbitz. I started the company about 7 years ago. A bit about the company, I don't know if all know what we are doing, but in general we enable storytellers around the world to tell very exciting stories through video by leveraging automation and enable them to create videos quickly, easily, and at scale. Like I said, we started the company about 7 years ago. We are currently 70 people in the company, and we have offices here in New York and in Paris.
Excellent, thanks. And RAFI, please.
Hi, RAFI TON. I'm the CEO of NUVIAD. In a nutshell, we are DSP, so we can provide you the ability to buy media throughout dozens and dozens of SSPs and exchanges. We are focused mostly on video on one side and hyper-local on the other side.
Excellent, thanks. And let's just check before we get into the topics. Let's just see who else we've got here. We're not going to pass the microphone around. I like how the lights kind of jump into the audience to have folks making sure everyone's paying attention. Raise your hand. Is that on cue? That was good. Or that's their anger in me calling out the light crew, sorry. How many of you here in the audience buy advertising or are on the brand or buy side of the business? Let's get some hands in the air. All right, great. How many of you sell advertising or are on the publisher end of things or represent inventory or supply? And then how many of you are in between, either at a tech company or consulting or anyone that works across the ecosystem? All right, good. I think we almost got everybody. That was pretty good participation. Not too bad. Not too many folks hiding. By the way, for those of you wondering who the heck we are, we're the largest programmatic consulting practice in the world. We've been privileged to help more than 200 companies over the last 4 years. I created the programmatic practice at the New York Times. Before that, I've been in digital advertising about 20 years and was in television before that at BBDO Advertising and Omnicom Agency in New York and Turner Broadcasting. So a personal, passionate topic here. certainly. So let's dive in and let's go back to now starting with those that are on the buy side and are closest to the consumer. So Alex, give us a sense, let's talk about the consumer first and where the trends are for video. Obviously there would be a narrative that you would think, hey, gee, it seems like we're accessing video on more screens, we're accessing it a little more flexibly, a little bit on the go. How does a brand like Purple think about the ecosystem when ideally, the goal is to get that 20% to 100% globally, of course, but at the same time, tougher to find someone in video everywhere they're going today, right?
For us, the number one thing is, we've been extremely video first. Almost all of our brand awareness has come through video, and spending dollars in the most efficient way possible is vital to us. So at least in the US, most people are seeing Facebook video costs go up 40% just the last quarter. So having, that's a massive change. If you look back 15 years ago, a lot of brands were built off of AdWords being really cheap. In the last few years, Facebook's been really effective for people. So again, Purple depended on that very heavily at the beginning. And because those costs are going up, it's vital for us to be able to get more views organically whenever possible. So one example that I'd like to share, a lot of people, and I believe in personalization as well, but one thing that's really important to us is, if we personalize on Facebook each layer that I advertise, you pay a little bit more. So each layer of data I add on is a little bit more expensive. So really broad targeting has worked well for us, which is really funny because we're all trying to dive deeper and get more specific. But stepping back and going broader has actually been the most effective thing we've done the last 2 years.
So as we said, the juice isn't worth the squeeze in terms of paying the extra layer every single time. Going mass sometimes is...
Sometimes.
Yeah, funny. Nice. Please.
I think they also talked about it in the last panel, but I think in the end, and relating to your point, it's about emotion. In the end, you want to create a good story. And when you create a good story, it works. So I don't think personalization is really good because it kind of like create emotional effect on that specific user. But I think going back, looking at the big picture, understanding what's the story, what are you trying to tell, and then trying to use those technology out there in order to deliver that specific story is something that I think worthwhile and creates a very good ROI. But I think in the end is really thinking about what is the story you are trying to tell, to whom, and in the end create a very, very good story and visual around that.
So story matters no matter what screen, obviously, you're on. You can still tell a story in 6 seconds. You can still tell a story on a smaller screen as opposed to a giant theater.
Yeah, I think at least from our point of view, we work today with tons of publishers, which are the biggest storytellers in the world. And what we see is that what they are trying to do is to create different experience that kind of like fits to where the audience live. So for example, if you're trying to create a video for Instagram, for example, do a square video, right? Do something that actually feels natural in that experience. And if you are on mobile, a vertical video will work best. So this is something we are trying to facilitate all the time and enabling the storytellers that work with us to create these different experiences. But in the end, we see that the ones that work are the ones that create a very interesting story around that.
Yep. Michal, how does SundaySky look at where the consumer ecosystem is playing out in the future?
So I actually wanted to refer to your comment about the 6 second.
Okay.
Basically what we saw actually on Facebook as well when we tested, if you throw out there many different durations, storytelling, messages, and you truly test between them, you actually start to see that the 6 second cap that is the common best practice for Facebook, you can see that for some people, actually other duration works better. It's always depend on the relevancy, on the actual message that you have there, on the engagement and the information that you have about the user. So I think eventually also within the walled garden, and I do relate to your challenge of the small audience and the higher CPMs are, but eventually, and that's what will happen in 2018, the more personalized one-to-one messaging, that will roll, and the walled garden environment will accommodate that as well, because it's a win-win situation. The more the relevant story is, the better engagement, the relevance is higher, and it proves itself.
You hear, Ravi?
Yeah, so I think that first of all, we need to admit some sort of very hard fact. No one really like ads, right?
Wait, what? No one?
No one likes ads, and so
Any
ads.
Alex,
ads
it's
suck.
a losing proposition. I'm sorry. You're done.
But our role, at least my role, as I see it in the demand side of what we're trying to do, is basically to make ads suck less. That's the idea, because the more relevant the ads will be, the more accurate, people will start paying more attention to them and start reacting to them in a better way. So you can tell a better story, you can have a better targeting mechanism, or you have 1,000 things you can do, but that's in my mind, our role in the industry. So doing that, what we are trying to do is basically have zero assumptions when we approach a campaign. Many cases what we see advertisers try to run a campaign and assume in advance that this campaign goes very well or perform very well for a certain segment or gender group or whatever. They are usually wrong. The idea is that today we have enough compute power and algorithms basically to run the campaigns in sort of self-optimized mode that they will figure out what works best. So long as you can cooperate with me and give me back some sort of feedback that a successful event has occurred, I can automatically optimize those events and shape the traffic that you are getting for your campaign in a more accurate way. So that basically means that the ads you will see will suck less. So that's what we are trying to do and how we see the future in the programmatic or algorithmic advertising.
We figured that the future of video might dive into the future of advertising in general, and we know that the next 32 minutes of this discussion could go into how much advertising sucks or doesn't, and whether folks are going to be paying for all of their video in general. But let's dive in a little bit more around the social video ecosystem first, and touch on a little bit of what Alex had said. I mean, you talked about a little bit about the targeting. Let's talk about the supply ecosystem, because we always talk about, and Will Richmond, who you're going to hear, a great moderator coming up this afternoon, has heard this before from us, where we focus a lot on the 3 T's: talent, tech, and targets. So let's talk about the targets for a little bit more here. And we think 2018 is going to be the year of identity, because it's so critical to be able to identify a consumer, especially in a post-GDPR world. For those of you who don't know what the general data protection regulation is that's coming in Europe, that impacts everyone globally that has any influence wanting to talk to any European consumer or audience member, you need to get their permission up front. Alex, have you been thinking about the future in a deterministic world where you need to get permission to talk to anyone and use any data about them? Or right now the goal is that's not even a focus, and let's just try and get in touch with as many different unique human beings as possible to introduce the brand? Where's that balance?
Yeah, that's a great question. I might not be the best person to ask that, because Purple, for example, it's a comfort brand. And the great thing about the products that we sell is anybody can use them, so we broadly target. Yeah, I'm probably not the best person there.
So you're not, fortunately, you don't have to worry about identifying each unique person and, hey, here's where they are in our classic marketing funnel, and move them down.
Yeah,
like that.
So if you qualify it that way, for sure, there are some examples. As we experiment, though, having a testing and learning mindset, the things that we learn, again, we sell mattresses, sheets, seat cushions, comfort products. A lot of people here, when you raised your hands earlier, are very tech-centric. Being a brand that's so broad, it's a little bit different of a story. Things that matter to me, for example, would be, last year, Facebook, our relationship with them was heavily dependent on life events. People buy comfort products when they get married, they get divorced, they move. Those are moments when it's important for me to get in front of people, because that's when they're making those decisions. Also, I mentioned stepping back and not always personalizing. I do believe in personalizing heavily, but we have noticed that if I target people that buy, like for example, somebody in here fit one of our personas is somebody that's going to buy a mattress. The interesting thing is, if I target that audience heavily and I scale those advertising dollars, I actually make more money if I target a younger sharing audience. The people that aren't buying are sharing and getting in front of more people organically. At least that's what we're seeing according to the numbers and how we spend dollars. So hopefully